We've been seeing an alarming rise of hate crimes here in Toronto, and the problem also appears to be worsening at our schools. Late last month, a change.org petition was launched following reports of a Toronto elementary school being vandalized with swastikas. At last check, the petition had more than 3,700 signatures from people expressing their concern over reported hate-motivated acts at Toronto schools. With this being a delicate and important issue to approach with our children, we're joined now by Steve Jordans, a professor of psychology at the University of Toronto. Thanks for being with us today, Steve. Now,
yeah, it's great to be with you, Melissa.
We're hearing from some parents who are looking for advice on how to discuss this alarming rise of hate-motivated incidents with their children. Where would you start with this sort of thing?
Yeah, where I would really recommend starting is to try to provide an understanding of what it is that they're seeing. What is hate? What drives hate? And the answer to that is ignorance fueled fear, really. That very often we and the human brain fears things we don't know and understand very much. And when it comes to other groups of people, people who are what we call in our out group, we often don't understand their rituals, their traditions, their way of behaving towards one another. And that's actually threatening towards us. And in any situation where we then start to feel fear, sometimes from other sources, we'll vent that fear through hatred towards these other groups. And I think, once children understand that that's what they're seeing is really ignorance, then there also becomes the idea of, well, what can we do about it, which is education, which is really trying to help. And that would be the second thing I would say, is to help your children kind of have an idea of the history behind this. Take some time to talk about why these emotions are so high and how they've come to be what it is. The more the child understands the context of the hate and the hate itself, the less it will be a dangerous, scary thing to them.
I'm wondering, too, that this is such a sensitive topic right now. We're seeing these images coming in from overseas. I imagine some parents might want to protect their kids from it and think, you know what, maybe we shouldn't have these discussions. I wonder why you think it's important to address them in some way.
Yeah, I mean, we would all like to build a little cocoon around our children and have hate not enter. The unfortunate thing is hate enters. They're going to see it. They're going to run into it. As we mentioned, it's even in their schools now where they're seeing things. And so I think we really do have to view this as an opportunity, which sounds, more optimistic than it really is. It is challenging times, but it is a good opportunity to really talk to our children about that emotional side of us that we often downplay, but has such important, when you see people out there and they're angry and they're expressing themselves in that way, we often tell our children not to be angry, or we sort of suppress the emotions. But I think it's really important for them to have an understanding of it and how it comes to be, so that they really know that it's an oversimplification. Hate is always an oversimplification. And when you get into the details behind the hate, you actually usually find it's a really complex story underneath it all. And learning to dig and get at that complexity is a very important skill for our kids to have. So I think this is an opportunity to do that with them. The fact of the matter is, many of us haven't taken the time to do that either. We haven't really dug into the history of this crisis. So this is something we can do with our children, gain an understanding of history and how human actions can cause these sort of situations to arise, and turn it into more of a learning situation.
I like that you say that adults can learn something in this moment as well. All right, you've addressed what we could do at home. I'm wondering about at school. The TDSB has told us that they do have additional resources that are being deployed. What should they be doing?
I think they should be doing exactly the same thing. Like, I would love to see, a real open discussion, a real educational discussion where, the emotional people are asked not to play a role, but to instead have a much more neutral description of the events and how they've come to be, and a more neutral description of how prejudicial behavior comes to be. I think the more we share this with the students, with the teachers, with everybody in the school, the more they will see these acts of hatred for what they are, just the acts of someone who's angry and uneducated. And, we need to start seeing it that way, so that it doesn't resonate with children, so that they don't say, oh, wow, this is power. It's not power, it's ignorance. And so that's what I would suggest as well. In fact, I would love to see the city bring together some leaders from the different perspectives who would just describe their perspective and how it came to be in a non-emotional way, perhaps religious leaders, so that all of us can have a better understanding of this complex situation that affects every one of us. And so I would like to see that right through the system.
I wonder what the kind of ripple effect having these conversations with young people could have across our society, around the world.
Yeah. I mean, they are, the worry is every event of today creates a new sort of situation for the future. That there's a worry, for example, that a lot of the things that Israel is doing now could create much more terror. And that's the world that our children are going to inherit. So the things that are happening today are going to be around for them tomorrow. And if they can learn how to think about these things, how to understand them well, and even understand what they are or what they are reflecting, that's going to put them in a better position to be making good decisions and to be helping their families and their communities in the future. And so, this stuff doesn't go away. I used to have this rosy idea that hate and prejudice was an old concept that we were emerging out of. But in my lifetime, we haven't emerged out of it. It keeps coming back. And so I think equipping our children to understand it is the best thing we can do for them.
You're right. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be going away, not anytime soon. That's Professor Steve Jordans with the University of Toronto. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Melissa. Have a great day.